have never seen the sun since I was a child. During the day, I was locked in a room in an underground nightclub. At night, I went out to entertain guests. Later, a man named Ethan claimed to be my husband. He took me home. Countless late nights, I woke up from nightmares. He always comforted me gently, telling stories from the past over and over again. Under his careful care, I gradually emerged from the shadows. I also had a child with him, just as I was immersed in happiness. I overheard his conversation with Bai Yueguang by accident. Sophia, once Lily's hypnosis experiment succeeds, you will be the greatest master of psychology. Ethan, the previous hypnosis experiment failed. Emily was sent to the nightclub by you. She has suffered so much over the years. I've really wronged you. For my sake, you had to have a child with her. At this moment, I felt like I was struck by lightning, looking at my daughter Lily, who was sleeping in the next room. And suddenly, everything came back to me. That idiot. She volunteered for the experiment in the first place. I never thought she would discover that we wanted to use her to swallow the Smith family. Luckily, she was hypnotized and lost her memory. Sophia, every time I had to be intimate with her, all I could think about was you. The two people in the room were close together, breathing heavily. Ethan, my brother, be quiet. Don't let her find out. What's there to be afraid of apart from me? Who cares about her, even if she finds out? I can hypnotize her again. Sophia, I really miss you. I'm going crazy. I stand outside the door, staring at the intimate pair. My fists are clenched. My fingernails dig into my flesh. Blood oozes out. But this pain is nothing compared to the pain in my heart. I used to believe Ethan's words. He never minded my past. He always blamed himself for not protecting me. Every time I woke up from a nightmare, he would hold me tightly, gently stroke my head, and say tenderly, "Don't be afraid. My dear, I'm here." So although I couldn't remember my past, I fell in love with him again. He always liked to tell me about the past over and over again. He said my name was Emily. I was an orphan. He saved me when I was on the streets, and later became his wife. I naively thought he was the hero sent from heaven to save me. Time and again, he pulled me out of the abyss, until just now when I heard their conversation. I suddenly remembered. I am Emily, the daughter of Smith Group, who has been missing for 10 years. At the time, I insisted on being with Ethan, despite my parents' opposition. In the end, they could not convince me. They had to fully support his startup company, hoping that I could suffer less. But he sacrificed me without hesitation for Sophia's dream. The backlash from the hypnosis made me lose my memory. He threw me into an underground nightclub. I lived a life of misery. Now he has mercifully taken me back, not to make amends, but to have me give birth to a child, to continue their terrible experiments. The heavy blow made me almost unable to stand. I staggered back into the next room. I looked at my 3-year-old daughter sleeping. She was so soft and cute. She loved to snuggle up to Ethan and listen to his stories. But Ethan never let me stay nearby. He said he wanted to bond with his daughter alone. Now I know. He was hypnotizing her in the same way. He was afraid I would hear and realize something was wrong. I caressed my daughter's little face tenderly. I made up my mind. Ethan had ruined me. I would never let him hurt my daughter again. I heard a few sharp breaths next door. My daughter began to squirm restlessly. I immediately lay down, hugged her in my arms, covered her ears tightly with my hands. Ethan, my brother, after the experiment is over, take the woman and her child to the nightclub. Then we will get married. Okay, Sophia's words came into my ears one by one, but I waited for a long time. I didn't hear Ethan respond. There was only the shaking getting stronger and stronger. The clock on the wall turned a full circle. The sound slowly stopped. My daughter opened her eyes in my arms. She smiled sweetly at me. Mom, looking at her innocent face, my heart felt like it was being slowly cut by a dull knife. Almost she was about to be turned into an experiment by Ethan. Fortunately, there was still a chance. The door opened. Ethan walked in. I immediately hugged my daughter tightly. Lily, you're awake. He walked over to the bed and sat down. He gently pinched my daughter's face. Seeing my nervousness, he frowned. Baby, what's wrong? I suppressed the hatred and fear in my heart, pretending to know nothing, just sleeping with Lily. I had another nightmare. I handed Lily over to the nanny. While Ethan wasn't looking, I took a deep breath. I kept telling myself to stay calm. I couldn't let him see anything was wrong. He took me back to the bedroom and gently embraced me in his arms. As usual, he stroked my hair. He comforted me tenderly. He said, "Darling, don't be afraid. I will always be by your side to protect you." Really, I broke free from his embrace. I looked him straight in the eye and calmly asked, I just had a dream that you don't want me anymore, that you sent me back to the nightclub, that you don't even want our daughter." His eyes revealed his unease and guilt. "Silly, dreams and reality are opposites. My husband loves you so much. How could he abandon you when I first came back? He comforted me in the same way. At that time, I was very inferior and very sensitive. I always resisted his closeness, but he never showed the slightest impatience. He moved the folding bed into the corner of the bedroom. Every day he waited until I fell asleep before he went to rest. He insisted on this for 6 months. No matter how busy he was at work, he came home on time every day. Regarding my affairs, he never delegated anything to others. He always took care of it himself, with endless love and unparalleled tenderness. He slowly melted my heart. He healed the wounds of my past. I often felt that someone like me would be lucky to live a good life, but someone actually loved me wholeheartedly. At that time, I vowed that for Ethan in this life, I was willing to do anything, but I didn't expect that all of this was just an act on his part. It was never me he loved. It was Sophia. He even did it for her. He pretended to be deeply in love with me. I looked up at his eyes. I asked, "Ethan, do you remember the vows you made at that rescheduled wedding?" He froze for a moment, hugged my arm tighter. "Baby, what's wrong with you today?" "Of course I remember. I, Ethan, will never let you down in this life, or I will be struck by lightning and die a horrible death." I finished the sentence for him. His eyes suddenly widened. His eyebrows furrowed slightly. He spoke with a hint of displeasure. "Emily, are you cursing me? Have I not been good to you all these years? I have never disliked you. I have always loved you like a princess. If I hadn't risked my life to rescue you from the nightclub, you would still be in the hands of some man." Ethan's words pierced my heart. Although it has been several years since then, when I think about those dark days, my body still trembles slightly. He is the one who caused all this, yet he has the nerve to say those things to me. Ethan notices that I am not feeling well and quickly puts his arm around me again. "Honey, it's my fault. I shouldn't have said that. I advise you to get some sleep. When you wake up, everything will be fine." I understand that he is going to hypnotize me again. I turn my head. I avoid his gaze. I speak in a cold tone. "I'm not sleepy. I don't want to sleep. Be a good girl. You rest first. I'll stay with you." He wraps his arms around me and squeezes tighter and tighter. I struggle to break free. I run from the bed. "Emily, stop right there." He rushes after me. He pushes me against the wall. He grabs my arm. "Don't call me Emily. That name is like a rope. It ties me tightly to Ethan." He finally understands that I'm not just depressed because I have nightmares. His eyes on me become cold and scrutinizing. He asks me, "Did you hear something just now?" "No." I try to look down to avoid his gaze, but he grabs my chin. "Emily, answer me." It's as if my consciousness is in his hands. I can't hold back anymore. I yell at him. "Yes, I heard everything. I heard your conversation with Sophia, and I saw you hugging." His face suddenly turned pale. "My dear, listen to me. I just want to help Sophia become a top therapist. I never meant to hurt you. Don't worry. Once the experiment is over, the 3 of us can live in peace." He took my hand. His words sounded sincere, but I couldn't find any love in his eyes. I stared at the man in front of me. My heart ached like it was being cut with a knife. When I volunteered to participate in the experiment, I had my doubts. But he deceived me with his sweet words. Now he wants to use the same method to make my daughter and I give way for Sophia. I told him, "Ethan, I remember everything. Don't you ever use my daughter and I to achieve your goals again." He suddenly let go of my hand. He took 2 steps back, looking at me with surprise. "What did you say?" While he was in a daze, I grabbed my phone and smashed it hard on his head. Then I pushed open the door and rushed out while running. I called 911. I kept shouting in my mouth, "Lily, Lily, I'm going to take my daughter and get the hell out of here." I knew that Ethan would definitely not let us go easily. Instead of waiting for him to come looking for us, we should take the initiative. Maybe there is still a chance to survive. I was about to go look for Lily, but then I heard Sophia shouting from behind me, "Don't move. If you do, Lily will be in danger." I turned around. Lily was holding a knife to her chest. Lily, what are you doing? Put the knife down. Don't waste any more time. She'll only obey my orders. She won't hear anything else." I stared at Sophia. She was walking towards me with her daughter. Her eyes were dull and lifeless, like a living corpse without any life left in it. She said to her daughter, "Lily, listen to your mother. Put the knife down." "Okay." I was so desperate that I almost cried. I shouted her name as loudly as I could, trying to wake her up. At that moment, Ethan came out of the house, his head in his hands. Emily, now that you've remembered, you should know, you'll never escape." He took off his mask. His eyes became cold. He stared straight at me. "Brother Ethan," Sophia looked at the blood on his forehead. Her eyes were full of pain. When she turned to look at me, her eyes were full of obvious hostility. "You bad person. How dare you hurt Brother Ethan? You still think you are the Smith family's daughter? Now you are no longer wanted. If the Smith family knew that you had relationships with so many men, they would be so ashamed." Sophia's words made me tremble. And Ethan, who had previously promised me a happy family, now just stood there coldly, looking at me expressionlessly. At that moment, I felt the whole world crumble. The little hope I had just raised was shattered once again. "You're so disobedient. There's no use keeping you." As she said this, she threw the knife in front of me. "You and your daughter can only live one. I'll count to 3. Either you stab yourself or your daughter will have to." I stared at Sophia. I gave Lily an order. "Lily, don't do it. Ethan, she's your own daughter." Ethan frowned. He turned his head away. "This is what you meant by always protecting me." Sophia began counting down. Desperately, I picked up the knife and aimed it at my heart. 3, 2, 1. I thought it was all over. Suddenly, the door was flung open. Several men in black burst in. They threw Ethan and Sophia to the ground. I rushed over immediately. I took the knife from Lily's hand, hugged her tightly. Lily, her eyes suddenly lit up. She pushed her small hand against my chest slightly. "Mommy, you're hugging me too tightly. I can't breathe." I immediately let go of her. I carefully checked her entire body, seeing that she was unharmed. I let out a sigh of relief. "Emily," a voice that I hadn't heard in a long time but was very familiar with sounded from behind me. There were also footsteps approaching quickly. I stood still. Slowly, I turned my head and looked towards the door. A man in a suit was running towards me at great speed. "Emily, it really is you." He ran up to me and stopped. His body was shaking. His eyes were fixed on me. His eyes welled up with tears. "Brother, is that you?" I looked at him in disbelief. 10 years had passed. He was no longer the spirited young man he had been. Now his temples were white. He looked much older. "Emily, brother has finally found you." I threw myself into his arms. All the emotions I had suppressed for a whole day suddenly came flooding out. "Brother, I thought I would never see you again." My brother patted my back gently, his voice choking. "Emily, I've been looking for you for 10 years. I got your text today. I couldn't believe it was real. I was afraid I'd miss you. Luckily I came. I finally made it." I leaned on his shoulder and cried. Suddenly I heard a bang behind me. I turned around. Lily had collapsed on the floor. She'd fainted. "Lily," I knelt down. I shouted as hard as I could. "Lily," but her eyes were tightly shut. Her body was still shaking slightly. "Sophia, what have you done to Lily?" I grabbed her by the collar out of control, but she just laughed scornfully. "Emily, you think you've won. Without me, Lily would have achieved nothing." Ethan stood nearby. His eyes were flickering. He looked a little anxious. He opened his mouth, but in the end, he didn't say anything. "Emily, don't waste time on her. Take Lily to the hospital first. Don't worry, I'll find the best doctor to cure her." He picked up Lily and walked out. I followed quickly. Sophia's harsh laughter followed me. "Emily, you can't defeat me." The police arrived when we left. My brother asked his assistant to stay behind to handle the rest. He took me to take Lily to the hospital first. I held Lily all the way. Tears kept flowing. I blamed myself, saying, "It's all my fault for not being able to judge people properly." I was deceived by Ethan again and again. My daughter had to suffer because of it. My brother stood next to me. He gently put his arm around my shoulders. He said with a heavy heart, "It's not your fault. You don't have to worry. In the future, I will definitely protect you both well. I won't let you get hurt anymore." We arrived at the Smith family's private hospital. The doctor and nurses were already waiting at the door. Lily was immediately rushed into the resuscitation room. I anxiously waited outside the operating room. Time passed slowly. I don't know how long it was. The door to the operating room finally opened. I immediately went up to ask the doctor about the situation. The doctor told me, "Miss Lily's vital signs are normal, but it seems that she is trapped in a nightmare. She can't wake up. She has been hypnotized for a long time before." That's right. I am not an expert in the field of hypnosis. I can't wake up Miss Lily. You'd better find the person who hypnotized her in the first place. Only they can wake her up. My heart sank. Could it be that what Sophia said was true? That only she could wake Lily up? The nurse wheeled Lily into the ward. The doctor said that although Lily would not wake up, her life would not be in danger. He told me not to worry too much. "Brother, I'm going to find Sophia." Have you thought this through? She's doing this to protect herself and to get her revenge. If you beg her, she'll definitely make some outrageous demands. Even if you agree, she may not really be able to cure Lily. In any case, for Lily's sake, I have to try. My brother nodded. He called his assistant. They were still at the police station. I'll go with you. When we arrived, my brother and I went in together. Sophia saw me and gave a smile that I had long expected. She said, "Comrade policeman, I'm Emily, the person who reported the crime. Emily, we've just asked. Mr. Ethan claims to be your husband. Mtkes Sophia is his friend. Is there some sort of misunderstanding between you?" Sophia gave a small smile. She stood up and took my arm intimately. "Emily, it's all a misunderstanding. You lost your memory before. You didn't remember me. You should remember now. I have a gift for Lily. I haven't had a chance to give it to you yet. Right, brother Ethan?" Ethan looked at me, nodding. He said, "Sophia is right. There was a misunderstanding about Emily." I stared coldly into his eyes, trying to find a hint of guilt, but all I saw was full of scheming. Yes, it was all a misunderstanding. The sweet words and vows of eternal love 10 years ago were all a misunderstanding. The attentive care and unwavering support 10 years later were also a misunderstanding. I laughed to myself. "Sorry, comrade policeman. I lost my memory due to an injury before. I remember everything now. Sorry for wasting your time. Just explain it clearly. If you have no objection, please sign the statement." The policeman took out the statement. Ethan and Sophia quickly signed it, then handed it to me. "I understand. Signing it means that today's matter is closed. It will be difficult to pursue it in the future." I looked at Sophia, who was full of pride. I picked up the pen and signed. For Lily's sake, I had to swallow my pride for the time being. We arrived at the hospital. Sophia only glanced at Lily lying on the bed. Then she walked over to the sofa and sat down. She leisurely looked at me. "Sophia, I've already agreed not to pursue this matter as you requested. What more do you want?" She gave me a cold glare. "You think this is over? If you want me to wake Lily up, you have to promise me 2 more things. You name it. First, give me 10 million. I looked at my brother. He nodded. "Okay." The second thing, divorce brother Ethan. If brother Ethan wasn't trying to help me finish my experiment, he wouldn't be with you. Sophia stood up. She took Ethan's arm. Ethan froze for a moment. He looked at me with mixed feelings. I didn't expect Sophia to make this request, but it saved me the trouble. My brother immediately asked his assistant to print out a divorce agreement. I have no interest in Ethan's wealth. The only thing I ask is that Lily's custody be given to me. Ethan held the pen and looked at me. He seemed hesitant. I was wondering while Sophia next to me kept urging, "Ethan, brother, sign it quickly. With this money, we can find a new test subject. You won't have to face Emily again. When the time is right, we can be together openly. I will bear you a child of our own." I laughed to myself. Just a moment ago, I thought he was being reluctant. It turns out that his hesitation was because Sophia wanted to become a psychologist. After Ethan signed the paper, his brother transferred the money to Sophia's account. Only then did Sophia use hypnosis to wake Lily from her nightmare. "Ethan, you can go. I don't want Lily to see you again. Lily is only 3 years old. She doesn't understand these complicated things in her eyes. Ethan is a loving and good father. I don't want her to be hurt at such a young age." Sophia took Ethan away. I saw Lily slowly open her eyes. She cried out of excitement. I took Lily back to the Smith family. My brother told me when he saw that I was calm. My parents passed away 3 years ago. He took me to my parents' graves. He told me that they had been looking for me all these years, for my sake. He secretly helped Ethan's company a lot. Looking back, for Ethan's sake, I fell out with my family. I ran away from home. But when my parents were seriously ill, he still lied to me for Sophia's sake. He didn't even let me see them for the last time. But my parents had always loved me silently from behind. They never gave up on me. If it wasn't because of me, they might not have died so young. Thinking about this made my heart ache. It hurt so much. I knelt down in front of their graves and bowed 3 times. My brother also knelt down next to me. "Mom and Dad, I have fulfilled your last wish. I have found Emily. If you can see from heaven, please rest assured, I will take good care of Emily. I will never let her suffer again. Dad, Mom, I am sorry." I looked at the photos of my parents on the tombstone. I couldn't help crying out loud. My heart was full of guilt. I was so unfilial. My tears just kept flowing. I couldn't calm down for a long time. My brother couldn't bear to see this anymore. He dragged me up. He said he wanted to throw a dinner party. He wanted to officially announce that the eldest daughter of the Smith family had returned. but Sophia's words kept going around in my head. I was worried that I would bring shame to the Smith family. I didn't tell my brother about the past few years. I was afraid that he would do something impulsive. Ethan has already caused me harm. I can't let him ruin the Smith family. Brother, let's put this off for now. Why, you are my Michael's sister. You are the eldest daughter of the Smith family. I want everyone to understand this. No one will dare to bully you again. But what, Emily? Are you hiding something from me? I looked at my brother hesitantly. I don't know if I should tell him. Emily, don't worry. I've arranged for someone to keep an eye on Ethan and Sophia. I've also made a public announcement that the Smith Group has terminated its business relationship with Ethan. Don't worry. They won't be able to make a splash. Seeing my brother's expectant gaze, I finally nodded my head in agreement. Invitations to the dinner party were sent to the major families in Baikang. My brother said that he would definitely throw me the grandest welcome party. The day before the banquet, there was an unexpected visitor at the Smith family's doorstep. Ethan, why are you here? I turned to leave. He ran up to me and blocked my way. Emily, don't go. It's been 2 months. I thought he and Sophia were very happy. But his face looked terrible. He seemed to have lost a lot of weight. His clothes were crumpled. They hung loosely on his body. Emily, I've done a lot of things to hurt you in the past. It was my fault. He apologized in a low voice. I know I was wrong now. Can you forgive me, even for Lily's sake? She's only 3 years old. She can't live without her father. I can't stand it anymore. I slapped him without thinking. Emily, what are you doing? I stared at him with a cold smile. You can't pretend anymore. Ethan, how dare you mention Lily? You know she's only 3 years old. How could you let her become Sophia's experiment? Now you remember that you are a father. It's too late. It's your company that's on the verge of collapse. That's why you have to lower yourself to apologize and admit your mistake. Once Smith Group made the announcement, companies in the North City area stopped working with Ethan. No one wanted to offend Smith Group. Ethan's company's financial chain immediately broke. It was facing bankruptcy. Sophia was only looking for a new experiment. She had spent all the 10 million yuan her brother had given her, without money. She and Ethan began to quarrel frequently. Their former sweet feelings had disappeared. Ethan's face turned from pale to red. I've hit the nail on the head, but he couldn't lose his temper. Emily, I'm serious this time. If you'll forgive me, I'll treat you well. I'll also take good care of Lily. I was about to speak when Sophia suddenly ran out. She shouted at Ethan, Ethan, you heartless man. You always said you only loved me, but now you're secretly trying to get back together with that woman. She rushed up to Ethan and they started to wrestle. I didn't want to watch them argue, so I went straight back to my room and told the security guard to get rid of them. The second night, I changed into the evening dress my brother had specially tailored for me and walked into the ballroom with him. Suddenly, all the lights shone on me. I nervously grabbed my brother's sleeve. He reassured me, don't be nervous. You're the star of the show tonight. You're the brightest star there is. My brother gave my hand a gentle pat. He comforted me tenderly. I calmed down. Together with him, I walked to the center of the stage. Thank you all for taking the time to come to tonight's banquet. My brother walked up to the microphone. He looked at me. Then he continued. As you all know, Emily, the Smith family's daughter, my younger sister, has been missing for 10 years. Now, the Smith family has finally found her. I walked over to my brother, surrounded by the crowd. Today's dinner is to celebrate Emily's return to the Smith family. Please take good care of her in the future. There was loud applause from the audience. My brother smiled and took my hand, leading me down the stairs. Suddenly, the lights in the ballroom dimmed by half. The projection screen slowly lowered. The picture didn't appear. First came a burst of rapid breathing. Everyone in the room looked at me. I looked at you. No one knew what was going on. Suddenly, an indecent video started playing on the screen. My brother immediately contacted his assistant to deal with it. At that moment, Sophia suddenly rushed on stage. She picked up the microphone and shouted, "The person in the video is the so-called Smith family heiress in front of you. You may not know, she used to work in an underground nightclub for 5 years. She had relationships with many men. She is of bad character." The security guard from the Smith Group rushed on stage, covered her mouth, and pulled her off. Ethan rushed over, grabbed me. "Emily, I'm sorry. I didn't think she'd do that." I immediately shook his hand off and walked straight up on stage. "Emily," my brother grabbed me. I turned my head and smiled at him to show him not to worry. Just then, I suddenly realized, running away never solves problems. You can only overcome your demons on your own. I walked step by step to the center of the stage, stood in front of the microphone. Everyone present looked up at me. "Hello, everyone. I'm Emily. I'm deeply sorry for the accident that happened at tonight's dinner. I know everyone is wondering if the person in the video is me. The past has always been a shadow in my heart, but just now I suddenly figured it out. I haven't done anything wrong. I shouldn't be trapped by it. After I lost my memory, I was taken to an underground nightclub. That experience was like being hypnotized. There was an instant gasp from the audience. My brother stared at me nervously, but I smiled easily. Those were dark days. I had planned to never mention them again. I escaped, but there are still many girls trapped there. They haven't done anything wrong, but they have suffered a tragic fate. As a survivor, I feel that I have a duty to speak out for them. I hereby formally announce that I will be filing a lawsuit against Ethan and Sophia. I will use the law to protect my rights. In addition, I will go to the police station tomorrow to report the case. I hope to do my part to help those girls still in trouble escape their suffering." The audience was stunned. Ethan looked at me in shock. Only my brother walked up to me and took the microphone. "On behalf of Smith Group, I solemnly declare that we will set up a special fund to help women who have been hurt. The Smith family will fully cooperate with the police to completely eliminate the underground nightclubs in North City." The people in the audience came back to their senses. First, a few people applauded and cheered. Then more and more people joined in. The applause lasted a long time. My brother looked back at me. His face was full of a satisfied smile. I understood. From this moment on, my life was really different.